Remove just 4 types of people from your life, and everything changes. That sounds extreme, maybe even unbelievable, but history, psychology, and timeless wisdom all say the same thing: your future is shaped not only by your choices, but by the companions who walk beside you. A single voice in your ear can either lift you toward courage or quietly drag you into ruin. And here's the shocking part: the most dangerous people are not the obvious enemies. They're the ones who smile, flatter, and soothe you while slowly stealing your strength. Think about it. How many times have you trusted someone because they said the right words, gave you a small gift, or promised loyalty, only to discover later that their actions didn't match? How many times has your energy been drained by people who talk big but never follow through? Or by those who whisper your secrets in the wrong places? And how many times have you stayed stuck because someone who loved you was too nice to challenge your excuses? The Buddha understood this more than 2,500 years ago. In the palaces of ancient India, he saw masks of friendship worn by courtiers, traders, and advisors. Some flattered kings to gain favors. Some made grand promises of victories and wealth, yet never lifted a hand. Some smiled while plotting sabotage. And some, with genuine affection, protected weaknesses instead of challenging them. The Buddha realized these patterns were not rare accidents, they were recurring archetypes of human behavior. And if we don't recognize them, they quietly shape our destiny. That's what we're going to explore here on Dharma Veins, where ancient wisdom meets modern life. Our channel is not about abstract philosophy locked in dusty books. It's about extracting truths that apply directly to the struggles you face today: choosing friends, navigating workplaces, handling family dynamics, and protecting your inner peace in a noisy, chaotic world. So why should you stay with us all the way through this journey? Because this isn't just information, it's transformation. If you truly understand these 4 types of people, you will see them everywhere: in the office meeting where someone overpromises, in the family gathering where a relative slips a dagger behind a smile, in the friend who constantly says, "Take it easy," when you actually need discipline. Once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them, and once you act on them, your relationships, energy, and future change dramatically. Let me give you a taste. History shows us the cost of ignoring these lessons. Julius Caesar ruled an empire but fell not to an open enemy, but to Brutus, the friend who wore loyalty as a mask until the knife was ready. Neville Chamberlain promised peace for our time after meeting Hitler, but his empty assurances led Britain unprepared into war. Marilyn Monroe, adored and surrounded by people who loved her, was tragically cushioned into decline because her companions protected her comfort instead of confronting her self-destruction. Each of these stories reflects one of the archetypes the Buddha warned about. And each shows that even the powerful are vulnerable when they fail to choose their companions wisely. But the opposite is also true. When leaders surround themselves with candor and courage, the results can be astonishing. Abraham Lincoln deliberately built a team of rivals, men who disagreed with him fiercely but sharpened his vision. Michael Jordan thrived not just on talent but on teammates and coaches who refused to let him slack off. Oprah Winfrey grew her empire with mentors like Maya Angelou, who loved her enough to challenge her mistakes. These figures remind us that the right circle doesn't just support us, it sculpts us. Here's the promise of this video and of this channel. We're not just going to name the 4 archetypes. We're going to break them down, expose their patterns, give you real stories from both history and everyday life, and most importantly, hand you practical tools to protect yourself. You'll learn how to test consistency, how to recognize flattery with strings attached, how to create boundaries that disarm hidden enemies, and how to turn well-meaning but enabling friends into true allies of growth. And if you think this is only about avoiding bad company, think again. The Buddha's ultimate goal was not paranoia but freedom. Freedom from being manipulated, freedom from wasted energy, freedom from cycles of betrayal and disappointment. By recognizing what to avoid, you clear space for what to cultivate: authentic friendships, wise mentors, supportive allies who bring out your best. That's why you need to stay until the end. Because we won't just leave you with warnings. We'll leave you with a compass, an operating system for choosing wisely. for building a circle that strengthens your path instead of sabotaging it. So let's make this personal. As you listen, think about your own life. Who in your circle always makes promises but never shows results? Who smiles in your face but plants doubt behind your back? Who loves you so much that they keep you weak instead of pushing you strong? And who, perhaps quietly, has proven through consistent action that they are truly on your side? By the time we finish, you'll have the clarity to answer these questions with confidence. Once again, remove just 4 types of people from your life, and everything changes. That is the Buddha's timeless warning. And that is the journey we're about to take together, here on Dharma Veins, where ancient truth flows into modern veins. 1. Why this matters now. We live in a strange paradox. Technology connects us more than ever: texts, Zoom calls, social media feeds, yet surveys show loneliness at record highs. We scroll through thousands of friends, but still feel unseen. That's exactly why the Buddha's warning about who we let into our lives feels so urgent today. In the Mangala Sutta, the Buddha didn't call wealth or fame the greatest blessing. He said the supreme blessing is to associate with the wise. Avoid the foolish, because our companions shape us. They either sharpen our discipline or weaken it, lift us up or quietly erode us. History proves this. Barack Obama built a team of rivals, advisors who challenged him, and it helped him make better decisions. Saddam Hussein, by contrast, filled his circle with yes men, and it led to disastrous miscalculations. The difference wasn't intelligence, it was the people they chose to trust. The same pattern shows up in business and culture. Steve Jobs pushed colleagues hard, but he pushed them toward excellence. Marilyn Monroe, tragically, was surrounded by enablers who gave her comfort but not growth, feeding habits that destroyed her. One circle produced innovation, the other fueled decline. The Buddha's insight was simple but timeless. Don't judge people by how they make you feel in one moment. Watch how their presence shapes your life over time. Modern psychology calls it social calibration. After being with someone, ask, am I more courageous, focused, and kind, or more drained, doubtful, and stuck? That's why this matters now. In a noisy world, our time and attention are fragile. If we don't choose wisely, false friends, promise makers, hidden enemies, and comfortable enablers will quietly redirect our path. But if we surround ourselves with the wise, people who challenge and inspire, our lives grow clearer, braver, and freer. Number 1. The masked friend. The Buddha warned about a type of person who looks like a friend but is actually a liability: the masked friend. On the surface, they're charming, generous, even flattering. They know the right words to say, the right compliments to give, and sometimes even arrive with gifts. But behind the mask, every gesture is conditional. Their kindness is a transaction. Their loyalty depends on what they can extract from you. In modern life, we meet these people everywhere. They can be colleagues who are overly sweet before asking for favors. They can be influencers who appear generous but only when cameras are rolling. Or they can even be close acquaintances who celebrate you loudly in public but vanish when you truly need help. Take the story of Nick, a freelancer who attached himself to a marketing manager named Lan. Nick showered her with compliments, promised big connections, and gave small gifts during company events. He even posted pictures online to show how close they were. But when deadlines came, his promises evaporated. He delayed, blamed partners, or simply disappeared. The gifts and compliments were never about friendship. They were bait to make Lan feel indebted. Once she realized the pattern, words always louder than actions, presence only when an audience was around, she cut ties. And her team finally moved forward without the drag. This dynamic isn't limited to small workplaces. History is filled with powerful figures destroyed by masked friends. Julius Caesar trusted Brutus, a man who seemed loyal, respectful, and affectionate, yet Brutus carried a dagger behind his smile. The betrayal didn't come from an open enemy, it came from the friend who wore the perfect mask. The fall of Caesar reminds us that the deepest wounds often come from those who look closest. Modern leaders face the same risk. Donald Trump, during his presidency, frequently surrounded himself with people who praised him lavishly. Many of those same allies turned on him when political tides shifted. Proving their loyalty was never about principle, only proximity to power. In contrast, Angela Merkel, former Chancellor of Germany, was known for preferring blunt advisors over flattering ones. She avoided yes men and built a reputation for level-headed decision-making. The difference was in recognizing who wore a mask and who stood in truth. So how do you spot the masked friend? The Buddha gave us clues, and modern psychology confirms them. 1. Compliments without consistency. They praise you, but when you need help, they vanish. 2. Generosity only in the spotlight. They donate, give, or help out only when others are watching. 3. Promises without proof. They talk of future opportunities, but deadlines always slip. 4. A subtle sense of debt. Their gestures make you feel you owe them, but the score is never balanced. The danger here isn't just financial loss or betrayal. The real danger is erosion of trust. After enough encounters with masked friends, you start doubting genuine kindness. You hesitate to trust true allies because you've been burned by counterfeits. This is why the Buddha didn't tell us to fear such people but to learn to recognize patterns. It's about wisdom, not paranoia. The antidote is clarity and boundaries. In business, this means contracts, deliverables, and deadlines. Praise is nice, but history is data. If someone consistently fails to show up, treat their words as marketing, not reality. In personal life, the antidote is time. Real friends don't need an audience to prove their loyalty. They are there when no one else is looking, and their support doesn't expire when the applause fades. Consider Warren Buffett. He's one of the richest men in the world, yet he's famous for his small, consistent circle of longtime friends and partners. Buffett has said many times that he avoids people who flatter but don't deliver. He chooses companions with long records of integrity. That discipline, knowing the difference between the mask and the real, has protected not only his fortune but also his peace of mind. At the core, the masked friend archetype teaches us a simple truth: trust patterns, not performances. Don't be dazzled by sweet words or conditional gifts. Look at what people do when the crowd is gone. A friend who quietly shows up is worth more than 1,000 who perform loyalty for applause. 2. The promise addict. The Buddha described a second archetype: people who live in promises instead of actions. They are addicted not to progress but to the thrill of talking about progress. Their words are polished, inspiring, and often grand, yet their hands remain empty. The promise addict is easy to admire in the short term, but over time, their lack of follow-through leaves only frustration. Modern psychology calls this the intention-behavior gap. Talking about a goal releases dopamine in the brain, giving the speaker the illusion of achievement without any real work. It feels good to announce big dreams, it feels tedious to grind through small steps. This explains why so many promise addicts keep planning, keep talking, but never move the needle. A simple story illustrates the pattern. Diego, a young man at the gym, always announced ambitious fitness goals. One month it was losing 20 pounds. Another month it was running a marathon. He bought the right shoes, downloaded every fitness app, and gave long speeches about nutrition. But each time the alarm clock rang, he hit snooze. Tomorrow, he told himself. Then, next week. Months passed, and Diego's body never changed. He was addicted to the dopamine of intention, not the discipline of execution. We see this pattern in powerful figures. 2. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the President of the Philippines, won office by promising sweeping reforms. Yet critics note that much of his rhetoric has not translated into concrete policies. The promises created excitement, but the reality on the ground has been slower, sometimes stagnant. History is full of leaders like this, great orators who inspired millions but failed to deliver. Woodrow Wilson promised that World War I would be the war to end all wars. His speeches were poetic, but his inability to secure peace in the post-war settlement planted seeds for the next conflict. Words without substance can shape nations, and often for the worse. Contrast that with figures who recognized the danger of empty rhetoric. Franklin D. Roosevelt, during the Great Depression, famously promised only one thing: bold, persistent experimentation. Instead of laying out utopian visions, he insisted on small, tangible steps. Try something. See if it works. Adjust. Repeat. That grounded approach saved faith in American democracy at its most fragile moment. Roosevelt understood what the Buddha taught: words must translate into action, or they become poison. The Buddha gave specific signs for recognizing the promise addict. 1. They point to past accomplishments to excuse current inaction. 2. They overpromise about the future to escape present responsibility. 3. They complicate simple tasks with unnecessary detail. 4. When they fail, they cover it with even bigger promises. The danger of dealing with such people is not only wasted time. It's the way they drain the energy of those around them. A team spends its days listening to speeches, brainstorming, and drafting big plans while the actual work is neglected. By the time reality catches up, opportunities are lost. The Buddha compared empty words to flowers without fragrance, beautiful to the eye, useless to the heart. So what's the antidote? One tool is the rule of one ugly step. Instead of demanding perfection, insist on one small deliverable within 48 hours, even if it's rough. This forces momentum and punctures the illusion of progress. Another is the meeting right pointing arrow maker rule. Every hour spent talking must be followed by at least 2 hours of doing. It's a practical way to cut down on endless discussions and redirect energy toward execution. Consider Elon Musk. While he is famous for his ambitious statements, his companies enforce brutal deadlines and tangible deliverables. A rocket must launch. A car must ship. A prototype must roll off the line. His rhetoric is matched by an operating system that forces execution, whether one admires or criticizes his methods. The contrast with the promise addict is stark. Bold talk only matters if it is anchored in action. The lesson is clear. Beware of those who speak beautifully but never deliver. Their charisma can blind even smart leaders. Neville Chamberlain promised "peace for our time" in 1938 after meeting Hitler. The phrase was celebrated across Britain until war broke out the next year. A promise addict in politics can cost millions of lives. For our own lives, the Buddha's teaching is practical. Look at patterns, not speeches. Does the colleague who dominates meetings actually produce results? Does the friend who constantly says, "Next year I'll change," ever take even one concrete step? If not, the pattern is clear. Admire their optimism if you must, but don't entrust your future to their words. The promise addict archetype isn't meant to make us cynical. Some of them truly believe their own words. They are intoxicated by vision, not malicious intent, but their effect is still corrosive. The Buddha's advice is to anchor relationships in evidence, not emotion. When words and actions diverge, trust the actions. When action is absent, treat the promise as theater. The world today is overflowing with speeches, tweets, manifestos, and declarations. The Buddha's insight cuts through the noise. Fragrance matters more than flowers. Results more than rhetoric. Choose companions who not only dream but also deliver. The rest are promise addicts, and if you rely on them, your future becomes as empty as their words. The comfortable enabler. The last type of destructive companion the Buddha described is deceptively soft, the comfortable enabler. Unlike the masked friend or the hidden enemy, this person does not intend to harm you. They love you, they support you, and they want you to feel good. But their kindness takes the wrong form. Instead of helping you grow, they protect your weaknesses. Instead of pushing you forward, they give you reasons to stay still. Their compassion, misapplied, becomes a slow-acting poison. A clear story shows how this plays out. Uncle T, after a minor accident, became afraid of driving. His sister loved him deeply, so she volunteered to chauffeur him everywhere. She told him, "You don't need to stress. I'll handle it." Weeks turned into months, and T stopped even trying to drive. What began as love became enabling. By removing every challenge, his sister unintentionally deepened his fear and dependence. Only when she shifted strategies, refusing to drive but instead walking with him through short practice sessions, did he recover his confidence. The Buddha's warning is precise here. Good intentions are not enough. What matters is whether an action leads to growth or decline. This archetype is visible on the world stage. Marilyn Monroe, adored by fans and surrounded by people who wanted to protect her, was often cushioned from accountability. Managers, friends, and even doctors shielded her from discomfort instead of confronting her destructive habits. They thought they were being kind. But their care amplified her decline. Contrast this with Michael Jordan's career. He surrounded himself with coaches and teammates who were brutally honest. They didn't let him slack off, even when he was already the best. That constant friction, delivered with respect, kept him growing instead of coasting. The comfortable enabler operates with 4 consistent behaviors. 1. They excuse your failures, reframing them as, "You're only human." 2. They encourage you to rest when discipline is required. 3. They remove obstacles that should be faced, not avoided. 4. They make you feel comforted in decline rather than challenged to rise. The danger of such companions is subtle but profound. They don't destroy you quickly, they erode you gently. You feel cared for, yet over time you become weaker, less resilient, and more dependent. This mirrors what happens in politics when leaders are surrounded by aides who only deliver good news. Kim Jong-un, for example, rules within a system of absolute loyalty. His advisors rarely confront him. Even when policies fail, the result is not strength but fragility, decisions made in an echo chamber, insulated from the healthy friction of reality. The antidote is what we might call growth agreements. Instead of accepting unconditional comfort, we ask our friends, partners, or colleagues to support our goals in ways that push us, not pamper us. For Uncle T, this meant asking his sister to be present but not to rescue him. In personal fitness, it could mean asking a workout partner to call you out when you skip sessions, not reassure you that you've earned a break. Growth agreements align love with accountability. Another antidote is the principle of healthy friction. Real development requires resistance. Muscles only grow when stressed, minds only sharpen when challenged. Leaders like Angela Merkel valued aides who debated her decisions. She welcomed discomfort in private so she could make better choices in public. That friction, managed with respect, produced resilience. In the same way, friends who push us to study, to train, to speak the hard truth, even when it stings, are gifts, not threats. The comfortable enabler archetype teaches us to distinguish between comfort and care. True care asks, what helps you become stronger? False care asks, how can I keep you comfortable? The Buddha's insight was that comfort, if it prevents growth, is as dangerous as outright hostility. When someone always agrees with you, always rescues you, and never challenges you, pause. Ask yourself, am I growing in this relationship? Or just floating? If the answer is the latter, it's time for a new agreement. Love plus accountability equals progress. Love without accountability equals decline. The hidden enemy. Among the most dangerous patterns the Buddha identified is the so-called hidden enemy. Unlike the obvious deceiver or the empty talker, this person wears the costume of closeness. They can be childhood friends, trusted colleagues, or even family members. They know your strengths and weaknesses. They share in your joys and hardships. And they appear loyal, but beneath that surface lies resentment, envy, or the quiet urge to undermine. Their weapon is not open attack but the misuse of trust, a whispered doubt, a leaked secret, a suggestion planted at the right moment to erode your credibility. A modern story illustrates this. Maya, a product lead in a tech company, had a colleague named S, who seemed like her strongest ally. They often stayed late together, shared frustrations privately, and presented as a united front in meetings. But when Maya was given control of a high-profile project, subtle cracks appeared. S forwarded an old private message of Maya's, where she had vented about being overwhelmed, to another manager. To the outside world, S framed it as concern. I just worry she's burning out. In reality, it was a precise strike. The trust Maya had invested became the very knife used against her. That is the essence of the hidden enemy, sabotage wrapped in sympathy. This pattern repeats in history. Julius Caesar faced open enemies in battle, but his most painful blow came from within, the betrayal of Brutus. Their bond had been one of trust and intimacy, yet envy and political calculation turned Brutus into an assassin. Similarly, in modern politics, leaders like Richard Nixon suffered not only from opponents but from internal leaks by those who once served closest to them. In corporate life, scandals such as those at Uber were worsened by insiders leaking private conversations and emails. often disguised as whistleblowing but also driven by personal rivalry. The key signs of a hidden enemy are subtle but consistent. 1. They celebrate your failures privately but console you publicly. 2. They downplay your achievements with faint praise, often disguised as constructive concern. 3. They share your secrets selectively, framed as if to seek advice on your behalf. 4. They study your vulnerabilities not to protect you but to exploit them. The danger is profound because the damage happens from inside. Just as termites hollow out a beam until it collapses suddenly, the hidden enemy erodes confidence, relationships, and trust networks until one decisive failure brings everything down. Their betrayal is especially destructive because it makes you question your own judgment. How could I not have seen it? That self-doubt is as damaging as their actions. The antidote is not paranoia but clarity. The Buddha's insight was that hidden enemies thrive in shadows, they need ambiguity to twist trust. The practical defense is light, what we might call process transparency. In Maya's case, once she realized what happened, she shifted all key communications into open channels where context was preserved. By removing private backchannels, she denied us the ability to distort information. This is the principle of light over secrecy. Another defense is the decision journal. By recording why a choice was made, with context, data, and reasoning, you create a trail. When an enemy tries to twist your motives or sow doubt, you have evidence of integrity. CEOs like Jeff Bezos have long kept written records of strategic decisions. Partly for this reason, memory can be attacked, but documentation is harder to corrupt. Finally, the antidote must include compassion with boundaries. Many hidden enemies act not out of calculated malice but out of unresolved hurt or envy. Seeing that can prevent bitterness from taking over your own heart. But compassion does not mean naivety. The proper response is firmness. Limit their access to sensitive information. Reduce reliance on private conversations. And set clear boundaries. As the Buddha taught, compassion must be paired with wisdom, or else it becomes permission for harm. History again confirms the wisdom. Abraham Lincoln faced bitter rivals within his own cabinet, some of whom leaked and schemed against him. Yet Lincoln's strategy was not paranoia. He insisted on formal processes, open debate, and written positions. Over time, the clarity of procedure reduced the power of hidden hostility. He combined magnanimity with vigilance, and it preserved both his leadership and his conscience. In everyday life, we can do the same. When someone consistently couches criticism in the language of care, "I'm just worried about you," but the timing of their words always undermines you. Pay attention. When someone recalls every past mistake at the exact moment you're gaining ground, don't dismiss it as coincidence. Recognize the pattern. Move conversations into transparent forums. Keep records of key commitments. And most of all, maintain compassion without surrendering boundaries. The Buddha's teaching on the hidden enemy is not meant to make us distrust everyone. It is to sharpen discernment. True friends build, even when they disagree. Hidden enemies erode, even while smiling. The challenge is to see through the smile without losing your own integrity. By bringing light, documenting truth, and practicing compassionate firmness, we disarm the dagger hidden behind the familiar smile. The operating system, how to choose people wisely. The Buddha's teaching on relationships was not just about warning us of destructive archetypes. He also gave us tools to actively cultivate wise companionship. In modern language, this becomes an operating system for relationships, practical principles we can run in the background of our lives to separate genuine allies from harmful ones. 3 parts of this system stand out: the 4x4 checklist, the 90-day rule, and the practices of boundaries ritual and reflective meditation. The 4x4 checklist works like a filter. When evaluating the people around you, don't rely on charm or occasional good deeds. Look at 4 consistent qualities. 1. Consistency. Do they show up reliably over time? Anyone can do the right thing once. Real allies demonstrate steady patterns. Think about Nelson Mandela, who never wavered in his commitment to reconciliation even after decades in prison. He drew strength from companions who were consistent in their support, not just those who showed up when victory was certain. Consistency tells you if a person is dependable when it matters. 2. Candor. Are they willing to tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable? Leaders surrounded by flatterers collapse under the weight of their own blind spots. Abraham Lincoln famously built a team of rivals who challenged him. Not because he liked conflict, but because candor was the only way to make wise decisions. By contrast, dictators like Muammar Gaddafi lived in bubbles of yes men who hid reality. And the results were disastrous. Candor is a form of respect, not aggression. 3. Capacity. Do they actually have the ability to help? Some friends may love you deeply but lack the skills, time, or resources to support your growth. Others might promise assistance but have no real capacity to deliver. Bill Gates often highlights that he and Paul Allen succeeded not just because of vision, but because Allen had the technical capacity to match Gates' ambition. Without real capacity, even good intentions turn into enabling. 4. Compassion with spine. The final test is whether someone combines empathy with firmness. Too much empathy without boundaries becomes enabling, too much firmness without compassion becomes cruelty. Oprah Winfrey often tells the story of Maya Angelou's guidance, which was both loving and uncompromising. Angelou would comfort her but also correct her, ensuring her growth. That blend is rare but invaluable. Running this 4x4 checklist helps prevent the blindness that comes from charisma or sentiment. It forces us to evaluate people by patterns rather than impressions. The 90-day rule builds on this. Don't make judgments based on a single act of kindness or one moment of betrayal. Instead, watch what happens across 3 months. Does the person repeat supportive behavior? Or do they revert to neglect and excuses? In business, venture capitalists use a similar principle. They watch startups over a period to see if talk turns into traction. Warren Buffett also advises that reputation is built slowly but can collapse instantly. The 90-day lens is a way to measure if someone's character holds under time pressure. Then comes the boundaries ritual. Relationships collapse when expectations are vague. By creating rituals of clarity, you remove the shadows where manipulation thrives. A boundaries ritual might mean moving sensitive conversations from private whispers to shared channels where context is preserved. It might mean writing down decisions so no one can distort memory later. Jeff Bezos institutionalized this at Amazon by requiring written memos for big decisions, ensuring that arguments and reasoning were visible to all stakeholders. In personal life, it could be as simple as agreeing with a friend, "We'll hold each other accountable every Friday." No excuses. Boundaries are not walls, they are guardrails that protect trust. Finally, the operating system requires inner work through meditation. The Buddha emphasized that awareness of others begins with awareness of self. A short practice can transform how you see your relationships. Spend 2 minutes breathing steadily. Bring to mind one person in your life whose influence feels heavy or unclear. Observe your body's reaction, tension, calm, or fatigue. Then visualize drawing a boundary or speaking a clear truth. Finally, send them compassion. May you be well. And may I have the strength to protect my path. This practice, repeated daily, sharpens intuition and softens resentment at the same time. The strength of this operating system is that it integrates both external clarity and internal discipline. Leaders who apply it avoid the traps of flattery, manipulation, and enabling. Angela Merkel was known for her disciplined evaluation of advisors. She looked for consistency, candor, competence, and compassion, and she maintained structured processes to ensure no one voice dominated unfairly. Ordinary people can do the same, even in smaller ways. In the end, wisdom in relationships is not about paranoia. It's about systems. With the 4x4 checklist, you can test the quality of companions. With the 90-day rule, you can filter out empty promises. With boundaries rituals, you create transparency. And with meditation, you strengthen your own clarity and compassion. Together, these form a living operating system, one that ensures your circle does not quietly become your downfall but your greatest source of growth. Stories that stick plus Q&A quickfire. The Buddha's warnings about destructive companions become unforgettable when framed through real stories. Lessons stick in memory not because of abstract theory but because of human examples, people we can recognize, admire, or pity. These stories are not distant parables, they repeat across boardrooms, political offices, and even family dinners. When we connect timeless wisdom with real figures, the teaching cuts deeper. The first story is what we might call the investor's dinner. A young startup founder was invited to dinner by a wealthy investor. The investor poured on praise, saying the founder was the next Steve Jobs, and promised a massive funding deal, as long as you keep things between us. At first the founder felt honored, but the terms of the deal were vague, and the timeline kept shifting. Behind the mask of flattery was manipulation. The founder, remembering the Buddha's warning about friends whose generosity hides conditions, demanded contracts in writing. The investor walked away, exposing the hollowness of his promises. That single act of discernment saved the startup from losing control. This story is echoed in politics. Winston Churchill often remarked that he trusted colleagues who gave him blunt truths, not those who gave him golden promises over dinner. Churchill knew words are cheap, patterns are priceless. The second story is the study buddy. A college student prepared for a critical certification exam. Her closest friend told her, "You've been working too hard, relax. We'll cram later." The advice sounded kind, but weeks passed, and every break turned into procrastination. The student realized she was being comforted into decline. To turn things around, she applied what modern psychology calls healthy friction. She found a new study partner who demanded daily check-ins, even when she didn't feel like it. The push felt uncomfortable but built momentum. This mirrors the difference between leaders like Michael Jordan, whose teammates challenged him relentlessly, and celebrities like Elvis Presley, who was surrounded by enablers. Jordan thrived under pressure, Elvis collapsed under comfort. The third story is the kitchen whisper. At a family gathering, a relative recalled a past failure of another family member, not to console but to subtly humiliate. He said, "Remember when you tried that business and lost everything? We were all so worried." It was framed as concern but landed as a wound. This is exactly how hidden enemies operate, taking insider knowledge and weaponizing it under the guise of care. The person responded with dignity, saying, "That was hard, but I'm proud of how I rebuilt." If we're sharing stories, let's also share what we learned. By reframing the narrative, they strip the whisper of its venom. Leaders like Barack Obama have done the same when attacked personally, acknowledging flaws but pivoting to lessons and vision. The ability to disarm subtle sabotage without bitterness is one of the highest forms of wisdom. From these stories come three of the most common questions about handling destructive companions. Question 1. Should I cut them off completely or try to save the relationship? The answer depends on patterns, not promises. Apply the 90-day lens. If someone repeats harmful behavior even after boundaries are set, cutting ties may be the wisest course. History shows both paths. Nelson Mandela was willing to reconcile with rivals who genuinely changed patterns, but he cut out those who continued to exploit. The principle is compassion with accountability. Save the relationship if growth is mutual. Walk away if it becomes a one-sided drain. Question 2. How do I avoid becoming paranoid or distrustful of everyone? The Buddha never encouraged suspicion of all people. He encouraged discernment of patterns. The practice is not to doubt every smile but to ask, what does this person's presence create in my life over time? Modern leaders like Angela Merkel embody this balance. She was cautious but not cynical, always testing trust through clear procedures. Wisdom is not fear, it's clarity. Question 3. What if the destructive person is family or someone I can't easily avoid? In those cases, the antidote is boundaries, not escape. You can limit topics, control access, and refuse to engage in patterns of sabotage while still maintaining basic respect. Michelle Obama has spoken about this in personal terms, the importance of protecting her own mental space even with extended family. Choosing carefully what to share and when. Boundaries are a form of love for yourself and for them, because they prevent resentment from growing. These stories and questions reveal a deeper truth. Wisdom is not about exile from people but about alignment with growth. The investor who flatters, the friend who comforts into laziness, the relative who whispers poison, they all test whether we have the courage to choose patterns over promises. The Buddha's system is not about paranoia but about freedom, freedom to keep real friends close, to recognize the harmful without hatred, and to walk with clarity in a world full of masks. We've walked together through 4 archetypes the Buddha warned about: the masked friend, the promise addict, the hidden enemy, and the comfortable enabler. They come in different forms, wear different faces, and show up in different seasons of our lives. But they all share one dangerous thread: they hold us back. Sometimes with sweet words, sometimes with subtle betrayal, sometimes with endless promises, and sometimes even with misplaced love. The truth is, a real friend is not the one who makes you comfortable, a real friend is the one who makes you courageous. Comfort can be a blanket that dulls your edge. Courage is the fire that forges your growth. If someone truly loves you, they will not simply protect your weakness, they will challenge you to rise above it. And if you truly love yourself, you will choose companions who sharpen, stretch, and strengthen you. History proves this again and again. Leaders like Abraham Lincoln, who surrounded himself with rivals, showed that courage comes from those who push us into clarity, not those who flatter us into blindness. Athletes like Michael Jordan thrived not because teammates pampered him, but because they demanded his best every single day. Think about it. The greatest achievements in human history rarely came from comfort. They came from challenge, discipline, and companions who refused to let mediocrity define the journey. And so here we are. The Buddha's warning is not meant to make us suspicious of everyone. It is meant to make us wise in how we choose. Remove just 4 types of people from your circle, and your life changes, not because enemies vanish, but because space opens for true allies to walk beside you. Before we close, let's pause for something deeper. The Buddha's heart of compassion reached beyond his own disciples. His teachings were always offered to all beings, seen and unseen. And today, as we look at a world shaken by natural disasters, by wars, by uncertainty, it feels right to send a collective prayer in his spirit. May all beings everywhere be safe. May those trapped in storms and earthquakes find refuge. May those caught in war find peace and protection. May leaders remember their duty to serve, not destroy. May families torn apart by violence be healed. And may each of us, in our own lives, become vessels of kindness, courage, and clarity. Just as the Buddha said, hatred is never ended by hatred. It is ended only by love. May that truth guide us now. And now, I want to hear from you. This isn't just a lecture, it's a conversation. Tell me in the comments, which of the 4 archetypes have you encountered most recently? Was it the flattering friend, the promise maker, the hidden enemy, or the comfortable enabler? And how did you recognize them? Your story may be the very thing that helps another viewer see clearly in their own life. If you found value in this teaching, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to Dharma Veins, because in the next episode we'll explore the other side of this wisdom, the 5 types of true friends you absolutely need in your life. These are the companions who don't just keep you company, they make you brave. You won't want to miss it. So remember this: comfort is easy to find, courage is rare, and the people you allow into your circle will determine which one defines your future. Choose wisely, grow bravely, and may you always walk with friends who guide you not into comfort, but into courage.